Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises to the Most High Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Burka Kodash. My double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone GMS, who taught me this truth, which is the 100% truth. Peace and salutations to the hopeful elect, spread around the four corners of the earth, risking their lives in these last days to push this truth. Shalom also to the few Akwats who are sincerely seeking this truth. It's the brother YASHARAHLA from the GMS Italy camp, and I just wanted to do a quick one regarding the atrocities of the so-called white man, Cristobal Colon, in brackets, and hopefully it's going to be edifying. Before I start the lesson, I would like to play this video and I'll report back.
Christopher Columbus, one of the great European heroes, turns up on the island of Hispaniola. He was welcomed by the native people. They embraced them, they treated them with fantastic hospitality. His soldiers snatched babies from the breasts of their mothers and dashed their heads against the rocks. Children were fed alive to his dogs. Women's breasts were cut off. He decided to hang 13 of the Native Americans in Hispaniola to recreate the crucifixion of Jesus, plus the apostles. It's true that the majority of people died there of disease. Disease is introduced by the Europeans unwittingly, but many others were driven to death through overwork, direct murder, through starvation as their resources were taken away. Columbus insisted that everybody bring him a certain amount of gold, and those who failed to do so had their hands cut off. Some were sent back to their villages with their hands and their noses tied around their necks, having been amputated by his soldiers. And what he did there set the pattern for the genocidal extermination of almost all the Native American peoples. 100 million before Columbus made landfall. By the 19th century, that had come down to less than 1 million across the Americas. Overtly endorsed by such revered figures as George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, who wrote about the necessity of wiping out Native American peoples. In Britain, we present the colonial project as being about teaching the natives table manners and double-entry bookkeeping. In India, the British manufactured a famine in the 1870s, out of nothing. There were food surpluses, massive amounts of food, but the governor, Lord Lytton, insisted that this food be exported wholesale to Britain. The ensuing starvation killed at least 12 million people, possibly as much as 29 million people. All relief works were banned except for hard labour in labour camps, where the inmates received the same rations as the inmates of Buchenwald, and where there was a 94% death rate per year. This was all done in the name of liberal free market capitalism. Of course, the British did something similar in Ireland. In Kenya, soon after the Second World War, there was an uprising by the Kikuyu people who wanted their land back. The Kikuyu were herded into concentration camps and fortified villages, almost the entire population of over 1 million people. People were systematically tortured to death. They invented a new kind of pliers whose purpose was first to crush men's testicles and then to cut them off. They raped women with bayonets. They raped men. Similarly, a favoured technique was to ram sand up the rectum with a stick. Sometimes they were rolled up in barbed wire and kicked around the compound until they bled to death. Some of the British soldiers boasted about this. This is within living memory. The colonial secretary lied about it. The papers documenting it were burnt. The impact of the rich and powerful nations has been so phenomenally murderous and destructive that it has been completely airbrushed from our national consciousness. In order to justify the land-grabbing colonial projects, you had to create an ideology. We, the Europeans or the Americans, have come to rescue the rest of the world from its depravity and backwardness. But in order to do that, you have to be able to demonstrate that the rest of the world is depraved and backward. From this arose the racism that is still with us today. It was a necessary component of the colonial project. Some people might claim, well, okay, we broke a few eggs to make this omelette. It's as if all those human beings were eggs. But look at the omelette. Isn't it fantastic? Look, we've made this fantastic omelette. Forget about all that unpleasant stuff and let's just celebrate where we are. Where we are is a continuation of the project. We commodified people's land and people's labour and turned it into our property. We're also destroying the rest of the living world alongside it. We don't have to be like this. We are the same human beings as anybody else. We're all part of the same big human family. We just have to recognise that, accept that. And of course, within Western countries, there are plenty of brilliant people resisting colonisation, both internal colonisation within our own countries and external colonisation of other people's countries. These are the voices which must come to the fore, those who emphasise altruism and kindness and generosity and empathy for others, those who recognise that skin colour and any other difference of language, of religion, of background is completely irrelevant by comparison to what we share, which is our humanity.
So as you can see, that was just a very few, just a minimum, a tip of the iceberg of the wickedness of the so-called white man Esau Edom, which is a big biblical nationality, Esau Edom. You know, no wonder the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai, refers to him as the border of wickedness. That's regarding the book of Malachi chapter 1 verse 4. He's called the border of wickedness, and the Most High hates him forever. The Most High has, an everlasting hatred towards this man because, these people are really wicked, There is nothing, bright in them. The spirit in them is not right, And we know the true Israelites are actually the so-called Negroes, the Native Americans, and the Latinos. And before I go further, it was actually speaking of Christopher Columbus, whose real name is Christopher Colon. It was written that he came to the Americas and he discovered the Americas, in which before he got there, we had the northern tribe, which is consisted of Issachar, Zebulon, ASSHUR, Gad, Naphtali, and the rest. They were already present there. So you have the story here in the book of Second Esdras chapter 13, right? This book of Second Esdras chapter 13, I would read from verse 40, which quotes, "Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasseh the king of Assyria led away captives, and he carried them over the water, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel against themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes that they never kept in their own land." So actually, they were carried away captives by the king of Assyria, so they decided between themselves, to flee elsewhere to another land where no one knows, so they can, thereby go there and, continue and, observe the commandments which the Most High Yahweh has given them, in peace, which they didn't do when they got there. They started following, different gods that they learned, So here in verse 43, "And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passage of the river, for the Most High then showed them signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of 1.5 years, and the same region is called Asaret," okay, which in the normal Hebrew tongue is Asarat, which means another land, and that land is America. Now, in the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 29, verse 28, as the elder apostles have taught us to always, break this thing down the right way, to to show that it is America. You see, and that word, you have it here. And the Lord Yahweh Hashem Yahushai rooted them out of their land in anger and in wrath and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is this day. You know, this is a prophecy right from way back, you know, until this day, as you can see it, you know. And that's another land that's Azareth, which is America. Now let's go to the root words. And cast them into another land. Another is ASSHUR, okay, which if you go, I don't know why it shows like this. It's not even giving me. Anyway, let's do it this way. Another land. Let's see what it says here.
Strong's H312. Aher.
Okay.
Strong's H776. Eretz.
Okay, so now if you put the two words together, and you know that in ancient Hebrew tongue you don't have the vowel E, okay, so it tells you is ASHUR, and this H no, you have ASHARAT, you know, which is what's written here, Azarat, okay, verse 45. So we know we don't have the E, which is Asarat. That's the land of America. So anyway, I just wanted to point that one out. But then, you know, going back to the topic, you know, Esau, the so-called white man that's ruling this kingdom right now, is a devil, man. He is wicked. He is known as the border of wickedness. And if we don't pray to the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai to quicken, you know, to hasten the time of the coming of his son, man, we're all going to be doomed. As you can see, he's manipulating and creating a famine, you know, in which is being used by the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahushai to punish the world people, you know. He's working in the laboratories, you know, working very hard to bring out new, how should I put it? I don't want to mention it so they don't take down my video. You know, new things that make you sick, you know. That's what he's been working about. He's been working about, you know, creating new beings that are half humans and half something else, animals, you know. He's been working, and, you know, all your tax money has been using them to create all sorts of wicked things, you know, against you, you know. He's giving out, you know, Vanessa juice, that, you know, one of its main ingredients is the Hydra vulgaris, which you should go look up. You know, the elder Apostle Taha did a lesson regarding it, you know. And this is actually going to destroy you, man. And it's going to prepare your body to collect the MOB. You know what the MOB is? The potato chips that's going to go into your body. Without that, you can't buy nor sell, you know. This is the promises that this man has for you. You know, he has not changed. He's the same person, you know. There is nothing new under the sun, you know. We all come back to our lot. He is wicked. And you remember what the book of Sirach, say chapter 10 verse 12 or 12 verse 10. I think it's 10 verse 12. It quotes, you know, never trust thine enemies, for as iron rusted, so is his wickedness, you know. This man is actually the wicked, and he is being exposed, you know. Everyone knows, you know. Those who have their eyes open, only these goofy ass Christians, you know, are still, you know, trusting in him and believing he's the right, the good one, you know. Now let's get the book of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. I'm going to read from verse 3, and it says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, and the son of perdition." And that falling away has occurred in 70 AD. It actually started in 66 AD, led by Titus, okay, led by his chief commander, Alexander Tiberius, who is a Jake, okay. And it says, "Except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." That man of sin is being revealed now, even more. He was already there back in those days, but people were still so asleep. So Yahushua actually came to open their eyes, to let them know what's the truth, But in these days, everyone knows that this so-called white man that's in power is the so-called devil, man. All his decrees, all his laws and everything has gone against the commandments of the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushai, and he's pushing wickedness, Now if you read verse 4, it says, "Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God." Yes, and has been doing that, through science, through all different kinds of sorcery, most especially by pushing himself as the Most High, replacing his image, replacing the image of Yahushai, who is a so-called Negro, and putting the image of a tyrant in his place, the image of Cesare Borgia. And these goofy-ass Christians are worshiping a tyrant, man. That's why it's written, many are called, but few are chosen, And that way that's going to lead to destruction is a broad one, and many are going to find it, It says, "Who opposeth and exalted himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he as God sitteth in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God." That's what I just explained. "Remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I told you these things, and now ye know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time." Listen, it says, "For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until it be taken out of the way." So is the mystery of iniquity was already worked. That was through the Romans that were in power then, In verse 8 it says, "And then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushai shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming." So Yahushai is going to destroy this man, okay, with the spirit of his mouth, which is the so-called chariots. Through these chariots are going to come concentrated fire. And you can also say through the spirit of his mouth, we're already destroying him through the spirit of his mouth, which is this truth that we're spreading. It's a two-way scriptures. So he knows that he has but a short time. That's why he's trying his best to make you all get juiced up, get this juice walk, and do all these things. But then Jake is stupid, man. Jake is saltish. Jake does not consider, Jake now is trying to become whatever. He's trying to, to buy a new car, get a new house, and succeed in this kingdom, man. This is not the time to be doing all that shit, man. This is the time to be seeking the Most High Yahweh Shem Yahushai in truth and sincerity. So the video you just watched, it's actually has been said that this man was going to do all this to us. Let's get the book of Joel 3. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 3, and it says, "And they have cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine that they might drink." This is exactly what they've done, and this is what they're still doing. All these children that are going missing, where do you think they end up, man? They end up as baby sacrifice For Esau, Edom drinks their blood to get younger. You know, these are deeper things, man. But this man is the devil and is being revealed in all parts, man. That's why you really need to pray for the kingdom of the Most High Yahweh YASHAMIAHLA should come as fast as possible. If not, we are all doomed. Just like the book of Matthew 24, 22. This is the book of Matthew chapter 24 verse 22, and it says, "And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." You know, and this is what we're actually praying for. And that's why this year is the year of hastening is coming, man. So the world is actually, you know, praying for things to get normal and things to get better so they could go back to their careers and stuffs, you know. While we are praying, you know, for things to get worse so the son of the Most High Yahweh can come and redeem us from this place, man. Because if we keep going like this, we are all doomed. If the Most High opens our eyes to see exactly everything that Esau has in store for us, man, I don't know what feeling will come upon you, man. Because this man is the harbinger of death, man. All he does, all his hand works is all death. You know, he has nothing but death prepared for you. He has impregnated the water, the air, the food, you know. He has genetically modified everything, man. This man is the wicked. And just wanted to point something out because, you know, amongst the so-called white people, we have the sons of Israel mixed amongst them, you know, because Israel is spread around the four corners of the earth, you know. So Esau, there are actually some Israelites that might look like the so-called white man, but it's the spirit that tells if you're an Israelite. In the same way that there might be some, you know, so-called people that have dark skin that looks like Jake, but they are actually Edomites, you know. So this is a great misery that the Most High Yahweh YASHAMIAHLA, you know, by the grace, you know, and by mercy He had for us through His Son Yahushua has given to us to have this knowledge of these things, you know. This truth is to be craved more than any other thing, you know. So yeah, I hope, you know, I sent a message today. I hope this lesson was edifying. Now I just wanted to point out a few of the atrocities of so-called white man Esau Edom. And let me just do something, you know. Let me go into the root word of atrocities. No, this is not what I want. Excuse me. So it says look up. Let's look up. It says act of barbarity. Barbarity. An extremely wicked or cruel act, typically one involving physical violence or injury. Act of barbarity, you know. It says an extremely wicked or cruel act. So Esau is actually known as the wicked, you know.
Christopher Columbus, one of the great European heroes, turns up on the island of Hispaniola. He was welcomed by the native people. They embraced them, they treated them with fantastic hospitality. His soldiers snatched babies from the breasts of their mothers and dashed their heads against the rocks. Children were fed alive to his dogs. Women's breasts were cut off. He decided to hang 13 of the Native Americans in Hispaniola to recreate the crucifixion of Jesus, plus the apostles. It's true that the majority of people died there of diseases introduced by the Europeans unwittingly, but many others were driven to death through overwork, direct murder, through starvation as their resources were taken away. Columbus insisted that everybody bring him a certain amount of gold And those who failed to do so had
The
their
return of
hands cut
Yahushua is
off.
just right
Some
at
were
the
sent
door,
back to
man.
their villages
To
with their
get
hands and
rid
their
of this
noses
man.
tied round
If
their
this man
necks,
is not gotten
having been
rid of,
amputated
man, we
by
are
his
all
soldiers.
doomed.
And what he
We
did
are
there
all doomed.
set the pattern
You know?
for the genocidal
By
extermination
Spirit, I just
of
wanted to bring
almost
out this
all
lesson. Hopefully it
the
was
Native
edifying.
American
I'd like
peoples.
to give all
100
praises to the
million
Most High Yahweh,
before Columbus
Bahashem,
made landfall
Yahawashi,
by the 19th
Bahashem,
century,
Rukakudash,
that had come down to less
double
than a
honors, the
million
apostles
across
and
the
elders of
Americas.
great news,
Overtly
talking
endorsed
this truth,
by
this
such
truth,
revered
this
figures
truth,
as George
peace
Washington
and
and
salutations
Thomas
to
Jefferson,
hopeful elect
who
spread around the
wrote
four
about
corners
the
of the
necessity
earth.
of
Shalom.
wiping out Native American peoples.